The dark ribbon of asphalt shimmered under the afternoon haze, the highway stretching out before me like a promise. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, but my heart was racing, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. 3 weeks. 3 long weeks away on a project site in the dusty plains of Wyoming. It felt like a lifetime. But now, the familiar green sign for Denver was getting closer, and a smile I couldn't contain spread across my face. I thought of my kids. A sharp, sweet ache in my chest. I pictured Lily, my 7-year-old, with her serious eyes and a gap-toothed grin that could melt glaciers, and Leo, my little 4-year-old tornado, who probably had a new collection of bumps and bruises to show me. I imagined his small head resting on my shoulder, his breathing soft and even like a little kitten's. The memory was so vivid I could almost feel his weight. My wife, Chloe, would be at work. Her marketing job was demanding, and she usually didn't get home until 6. It was just past 4 now. A brilliant idea sparked in my mind. I could get home, drop my bags, and head straight to their schools. The look on their faces when I showed up unexpectedly would be priceless. Pure joy. The thought made me press a little harder on the accelerator. I pulled into the underground garage of our high-rise apartment building, the squeal of the tires echoing in the cool concrete space. I grabbed my suitcase, my steps quick and light as I headed for the elevator. I rode it up to the top floor, to the penthouse apartment that was our home, our sanctuary. Or so I thought. The elevator door slid open with a soft chime. I walked down the quiet, carpeted hallway, the anticipation building with every step. I was almost at our door when I stopped. My feet froze to the floor. There, placed neatly on the welcome mat, was a pair of men's shoes. They weren't work boots or sneakers. They were expensive, polished black leather, a sleek, pointed toe, with that distinctive red sole design of a high-end brand. I'm a construction guy, but I know quality when I see it. These were the kind of shoes a slick executive wears, the kind that cost more than my first car. My brow furrowed. Whose were they? Not a repairman. Chloe sometimes called for a plumber or an electrician for small fixes. But they wore heavy-duty boots, not $1,000 dress shoes. Maybe a relative had dropped by? A cousin or an uncle? But if it was family, why hadn't Chloe told me? She always told me. A swarm of questions buzzed in my head, but I tried to calm myself. I was overthinking it. It had to be a simple explanation. A friend of hers from work. Maybe. Someone I hadn't met. I told myself to breathe. I slid my key into the lock and turned it as quietly as I could. The heavy door swung inward, revealing an apartment that was strangely silent. Usually, at this time of day, I'd hear the cheerful chatter of our nanny, Maria, and the boisterous energy of Leo, who always got home from preschool early. Lily's elementary school didn't let out for another hour. But today, the silence was absolute. It felt heavy, unnatural. I stepped inside, pulling my suitcase behind me. "Honey, I'm home," I called out, my voice sounding louder than I intended in the stillness. No answer. Maybe Maria had taken Leo to the park. That made sense. I set my luggage down by the door, my plan to change clothes and head out to the school still in motion. I started toward our bedroom, and then I heard it. A sound that stopped me dead in my tracks. A soft, familiar giggle, coming from our bedroom. My blood ran cold. It was Chloe's laugh, unmistakably hers. An intimate, private sound I knew as well as my own heartbeat. But it was wrong. Everything about it was wrong in this context. Why was she home at this hour? And who was she laughing with in our bedroom? My heart began to hammer against my chest. A violent, panicked rhythm. A terrible feeling. A cold dread, coiled in the pit of my stomach. My hands felt numb. Step by slow step, I moved toward the bedroom door, which was slightly ajar. Through the narrow opening, I could hear her whispering something, her voice low and playful. It was punctuated by the deeper murmur of a man's voice. I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. I knew enough. There were 2 people in there. My throat was as dry as dust. My face flushed with a sudden, feverish heat. I couldn't stand it a second longer. My mind went blank, replaced by a raw, primal impulse. I shoved the door. It flew open, crashing against the wall with a deafening bang. The scene before me burned itself into my memory. An image I knew would haunt me for the rest of my life. Chloe was naked, lying beneath another man on our bed. The silk nightgown she loved was tossed carelessly over a chair. The pristine white sheets were a tangled mess. The man, startled, twisted his head to look at me. his eyes wide with shock. And I just stood there, frozen in the doorway, a dead man walking. It felt like my entire body had turned to stone. The world tilted on its axis. My vision swam, dark spots dancing at the edges. A wave of nausea, bitter and acidic, rose in my throat. The sight of them, of their sordid act on the bed we shared, the bed where our children were conceived, was a physical blow. It was a knife twisting in my gut. Pain, revulsion, a sense of betrayal so profound it felt like it was tearing me apart from the inside out. I wanted to scream, to roar, to smash something, to do anything to release the hurricane of rage and agony building inside me. But my body wouldn't obey. I was paralyzed for what felt like an eternity. Then, I heard her voice. A weak, panicked whisper. "Ethan, it's not what you think." That broke the spell. Her words were a meaningless hiss in the roaring chaos of my mind. I couldn't hear, couldn't process. It was all just a nightmare. A waking, breathing, horrifying nightmare. I couldn't stay there another second. I spun on my heel and bolted. I ran from the bedroom, from the scene of my life's great unraveling. I didn't grab my keys, my wallet, nothing. I just ran. I heard her call my name again. A desperate, broken sound behind me, but it was already fading. I yanked the front door open and slammed it shut, the sound echoing the shattering of my world. My legs felt weak, unsteady, as I stumbled toward the elevator. But I couldn't wait. I swerved toward the fire escape door and burst through it, taking the concrete stairs for at a time. The frantic pounding of my feet on the steps matched the wild rhythm of my heart. My breath came in ragged, desperate gasps. My whole body trembled, a cold sweat breaking out across my skin even as I burned with humiliation and rage. One thought, and one thought only, pounded in my head. Get away. Get away as fast as you can. When I reached the parking garage, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely press the button on my key fob. It took me 3 tries to unlock the car door. I threw myself into the driver's seat, fumbling with the ignition. The key scraped against the metal, my trembling hands refusing to cooperate. Finally, the engine roared to life. I slammed the car into reverse, then drive, and shot out of the garage like a thief fleeing a crime scene. The car tore out of the building's gate, merging recklessly into the flow of traffic. Outside, the sky had turned a bruised, angry purple. The storm that had been threatening all afternoon finally broke. Rain began to fall, not in gentle drops, but in thick, heavy sheets that hammered against the windshield. The wind howled, shaking the frame of the car, a perfect mirror of the tempest raging inside my soul. I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I had no destination, no purpose other than to put distance between myself and that apartment, between myself and the woman who had just destroyed me. My mind was a maelstrom of fractured thoughts and agonizing questions. Why? How could this happen? To me? To us? What did I do wrong? Where wasn't I good enough? Why would Chloe, the woman I loved and trusted more than life itself, betray me in such a cruel, devastating way? The question spun in a dizzying loop, but the only answer was the relentless drumming of the rain on the roof. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. A bitter taste, like bile, filled my mouth. My eyes blurred, partly from the rain streaming down the glass, partly from the hot tears that threatened to spill over. But I didn't cry. I think I was too shocked to cry. Instead, a white-hot fury mixed with a deep, gut-wrenching shame was ripping my chest to shreds. The car flew through the storm-lashed streets. I took turns at random, following whichever road appeared before me. It didn't matter where I went. My mind was trapped, replaying the hideous image over and over. Chloe, naked with a stranger, in our sacred bed. The thought was a physical torment. The nausea returned, stronger this time, forcing me to swerve violently to the side of the road. I threw the door open and leaned out, gasping for air. I retched, but my stomach was empty. There was nothing to come up but that bitter, revolting taste. The cold rain lashed my face, plastering my hair to my forehead, but I didn't bother to wipe it away. I let it soak me, leaning against the car door, my body heaving with dry sobs. It was a long time before I could sit up straight, before I could close the door and drive again. The confined space of the car felt suffocating, trapping me with my own pain. I let out a guttural scream, a sound of pure anguish, and slammed my fist against the steering wheel. The horn blared, a lonely, jarring sound in the empty, rain-swept street. Lightning split the sky, a jagged scar across the black canvas. Thunder cracked right after. A sound like the world breaking apart. I just kept driving into the rainy night. Time seemed to stop. Hours might have passed, but I had no awareness of it. My mind was numb. A wasteland of unanswered questions, and a pain so sharp it felt like it was suffocating me. That fateful night, my life had been irrevocably broken, veering onto a dark and unknown path from which I knew there was no turning back. I have no idea how long I drove through that torrential downpour. When the gas lights started blinking and my eyes burned from staring into the rain-streaked darkness, I finally pulled over under the awning of a derelict, closed-down storefront. The rain had slowed to a steady, miserable drizzle, drumming a monotonous rhythm on the roof of the car. I sat there, slumped over the wheel, my mind a complete blank, my body exhausted from the massive shock it had endured. The city was asleep. The street was empty, washed clean by the storm, shimmering under the sickly yellow glow of the streetlights. A profound sense of loneliness enveloped me. I thought of home, the place I should have been right now, sitting down to dinner with my family, the chaos and laughter of a normal evening filling the air. Just this morning, I was bursting with excitement to get back. Now, I was a ghost, haunting a deserted street corner, a homeless man in a luxury car. In the space of a few hours, my entire world had collapsed. After sitting in silence for what felt like an eternity, I knew I had to find somewhere to go. I couldn't just wander the streets all night in this state. Across the road, the neon sign of a small, seedy motel flickered weakly through the rain. Vacancy. I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to steady myself, and drove the car across the street. I must have been a sorry sight walking into the lobby. My clothes soaked, my face a hollow mask of despair. The night clerk, a tired-looking man with weary eyes, gave me a cautious look but maintained a professional courtesy. I managed to ask for a room, my voice a hoarse croak. I paid in cash, filled out the registration form mechanically, and took the key card. I felt like I was moving through a dream, a hazy, unreal sequence of events. The room was small and smelled of stale cigarettes and disinfectant. It was clean enough, but the silence was deafening. The low hum of the air conditioner was a stark contrast to the roaring tempest in my mind. I let my wet jacket fall to the floor and collapsed onto the edge of the stiff, scratchy bedspread. My body was completely drained, my mind an empty vessel, but my heart was a raw, open wound. Everything had happened too fast, too suddenly. My brain hadn't caught up. The silence of the room was terrifying. It forced me to face the brutal reality of what had happened to my marriage. I pulled my phone from my pocket. The screen lit up, displaying dozens of missed calls and a flood of text messages. My heart clenched. Most of them were from Chloe. A few were from her parents. She must have called them in a panic after I left. I threw the phone onto the bed as if it were on fire. I didn't want to hear any explanations, any apologies, any pleas. I was afraid that if I heard her voice, I would either explode with rage or completely break down. Ignoring the persistent buzzing of the phone, I stumbled toward the bathroom and stripped off my wet, clinging clothes. I turned the shower on, twisting the knob until the water was scalding hot. It blasted against my skin, but I felt nothing. I braced my hands against the tile wall, letting the water pour over my head, over my face, and then, the tears I had been fighting back finally came, mixing with the hot stream of the shower. I had told myself to be strong, to be tough, but in that moment, I allowed myself to be weak. I sobbed, the sound choked and broken, echoing in the small, steamy space. I cried for my own pain and humiliation. For 10 years, I had poured every ounce of myself into my family, only to be rewarded with the most crushing betrayal. I cried for my two innocent children. They were too young to understand the storm that was about to hit their lives. What would happen to them if their parents split up? Would their childhood be as damaged as mine had been? The thought was a dagger to my heart. Memories I had long suppressed came rushing back, as clear and sharp as if they had happened yesterday. I grew up in a broken home. When I was 8 years old, my father left us for another woman. The image of that afternoon is forever seared into my mind. He was dragging a suitcase toward the door while my mother clung to his legs, her face streaked with tears, begging him not to go. He shoved her away. She fell to the floor, and he walked out without a single backward glance. I was just a little boy, hiding behind my bedroom door, watching his back grow smaller and smaller, too young to understand why he was leaving us. My mother cried for months afterward, but never in front of me. She shouldered every burden, becoming both mother and father, working tirelessly to raise me. We moved into a smaller, cramped apartment. She took on 2, sometimes 3 jobs just to make ends meet. At night, I would hear her sighing in the darkness. But in the morning, she would be there with a gentle smile, encouraging me to study hard. Education is the only way out, Ethan. She'd say, work hard, be successful, and you'll never have to suffer like this. I took her words to heart. I was determined to succeed, not just for myself, but for her. I vowed to be strong, to build a life where she would never have to worry again. And more than anything, I promised myself that one day, I would build a happy, complete family of my own. My children would never know the pain of abandonment that I had, having lived through a childhood of hardship and emotional scars. I cherished the idea of family above all else. The years passed. I didn't disappoint my mother. I got into a good university and graduated with honors. I threw myself into my career, working my way up through sheer grit and determination. By the time I was 30, I was successful, stable, and ready to build that home I had always dreamed of. I met her, the woman who would become my wife, by pure chance. She was a promotional model for a new product our company was launching at a trade show. The first time I saw her, standing at the booth with a radiant smile and a confident air, I was captivated. She wasn't a stunning, otherworldly beauty, but she had a natural charm, an intelligence that shone in her eyes. Her witty, engaging way with people drew a huge crowd to our booth that day. She radiated ambition and a powerful drive to succeed. After the event, I introduced myself. As we talked, I learned she came from a modest family in a small town, and had come to the city for college with big dreams. She told me she wanted a stable career, a life more comfortable than the one her parents had. I saw in her a reflection of my own ambition, my own hunger to rise above my circumstances. Perhaps it was that shared drive that drew us together. We started dating. The more I got to know her, the more I admired her intelligence and her strength. She was independent, never relying on anyone but herself. Our relationship moved quickly. Friends and colleagues were surprised when I, a successful man in my 30s, decided to marry a recent college graduate from a simple background. But I was sure of my choice. In my eyes, she was the one. She was the woman with whom I would build a lifetime of happiness. Our wedding was a beautiful celebration, blessed by our families and friends. Everyone said we were a perfect match. I was proud to have a wife who was not only beautiful but also smart and capable. After we got married, she came to work at my company as a marketing assistant. I wanted us to be close, to support her as she started her career. The first few years of our marriage were blissful. We welcomed our daughter, Lily, and a few years later, our son, Leo. Our little family was filled with the sound of children's laughter. I worked harder than ever to provide for them. And Chloe was a wonderful mother. But she didn't want to just be a mother. When Leo was 2, she enrolled in night classes to get her MBA. I supported her decision completely. Seeing her juggle childcare, a daytime job, and her studies, I was filled with admiration. I did everything I could to help, hiring a nanny and taking on more household chores so she could focus on her education. 2 years later, she graduated with top honors. On her graduation day, I held her in my arms, bursting with pride. Everyone complimented me on having such a brilliant and ambitious wife. I felt like the luckiest man alive. After getting her master's degree, she moved to another company as a project manager, a position with better opportunities for advancement. Even though we no longer worked together, I was her biggest supporter. She became more and more successful. Her style became more polished, her confidence more striking. Sometimes, when we attended company parties together, I would see other men watching her with admiration. It made me proud, but also sparked a tiny, fleeting flicker of insecurity. I quickly dismissed it. I trusted her completely. I trusted her character, and I trusted the love she had for me. In over 10 years of marriage, I never once had a reason to doubt her. I used to tell my friends how content I was with my life. A beautiful, brilliant wife, 2 wonderful children, a thriving career, financial security. What more could I ask for? I believed I had to protect the happiness I had built. I knew there were temptations out in the world. As a successful man, I wasn't immune to advances from younger, beautiful women. But I always remembered my family. I reminded myself never to stray. To me, my wife and children were everything. And now, the irony was crushing. I, the man who had so fiercely guarded his family's sanctity, was the one who had been betrayed. Thinking of this, I felt the world crumble all over again. I stared blankly at the stained ceiling of the motel room and wondered if fate was playing a cruel joke on me. Why? After all my efforts to build a perfect family, did I end up in the same position as my mother all those years ago? Betrayed by the person I loved most. The only difference was that this time, I was the one left behind. The pain was too great. I couldn't understand what had driven her to this. Was I not good enough? Had she changed? Had her success made her want more than I could give? Or was it just a moment of weakness? A fleeting mistake? Whatever the reason, the result was the same. Our home was shattered. And our children? What would happen to our children? I thought of Lily's innocent face, and my chest tightened until it was hard to breathe. They were too young to understand. But this would undoubtedly leave a deep scar. One reckless, selfish act could cause so much tragedy for the innocent people caught in the crossfire, especially the children. I had lived that painful childhood, deprived of a father's love. I didn't want my own children to suffer the same fate. That thought jolted me out of my spiraling memories. I realized I couldn't just hide in this motel room forever. Like it or not, I had to face reality. I had to face her. And most importantly, I had to think about the future of my children. They needed their father. They deserved a normal life. I found myself holding a small bottle of whiskey from the minibar, sometime during my painful trip down memory lane. I must have grabbed it, hoping to drown my sorrows in alcohol. I poured a glass and drank it in one go. The liquid burned its way down my throat, but the fire wasn't strong enough to consume the pain in my heart. I drank another, and another, hoping the alcohol would numb me, help me forget. But the more I drank, the clearer my head became. The image of my children's faces swam before my eyes, and the pain intensified. I had just walked out on them. They would be worried. Lily and Leo were probably waiting for me, wondering where their dad was. The thought made my own tears start to fall again. I looked at the clock on the nightstand. It was almost 3 a.m. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. I made a decision. In the morning, I would go back. At the very least, I had to see my children. I would try to stay calm. I would have a clear, final conversation with her. Whatever happened next, we had to handle it like adults, for the sake of the kids. That night, I fell into a fitful, shallow sleep, the half-empty glass of whiskey still in my hand. It was a long night, filled with nightmares and a pain that felt like it was tearing my heart in two. 2 days later, I drove back to the city. For 48 hours, I had existed in a void, cutting off all contact with the world. I didn't answer my phone. I didn't read the barrage of texts. I needed the silence, the space to let the initial shock subside into something manageable, something I could think through. The pain was still a raw, gaping wound in my chest, and my mind was a tangled mess. But I knew I had to go back. I couldn't just disappear. I had to children who loved me, who needed me, and they deserved to know that their father was still there for them, no matter what. It was around 7 in the evening when I finally pulled up to the apartment building. The rain had passed, leaving the air cool and clean, but a heaviness like a physical weight pressed down on me. I parked the car in my designated spot in the garage and walked toward the elevator, each step feeling like it was encased in lead. I had never felt such dread walking toward my own front door. A lump formed in my throat as the familiar dark wood of the door came into view. I took a deep breath, slid my key into the lock, and pushed it open. The apartment was filled with a warm, yellow light, the familiar scent of a home-cooked meal roast chicken, the kids' favorite wafted from the kitchen. At the dining table in the center of the open-plan living room, Chloe was sitting with our 2 children. The 3 of them turned their heads in unison as the door opened. "Daddy!" Lily's voice, high and clear, was the first thing I heard. Her eyes lit up with pure, unadulterated joy. Leo immediately scrambled down from his chair, his little legs pumping as he ran toward me. "Daddy's home," he squealed. They crashed into my legs, their small arms wrapping around me in a desperate hug. I knelt, gathering them both into my arms, burying my face in their hair. The clean, sweet smell of them, the feel of their small, warm bodies pressed against mine almost broke me. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to swallow the sob that was rising in my throat, and forced a weak smile onto my face. "Hey, guys, I'm back," I managed to say, my voice rough. "I'm sorry I was gone so long. You promised you'd pick me up from school," Lily said, pouting, her eyes welling up with tears of betrayal. I waited and waited. I stroked her hair, the guilt a fresh stab of pain. "I know. Sweetie. I'm so sorry. Something came up with work, and I couldn't get back in time. Don't be mad at Daddy. Okay. I'll make it up to you. She sniffled and buried her face in my chest, nodding silently. Leo just clung to me, whispering, I missed you. Daddy. Don't go away for a long time again. Okay. My throat was thick with unshed tears. I kissed the top of his soft hair. Okay. Buddy. I know. Only then did my eyes move past my children to my wife. She was still sitting at the table, her face pale and gaunt, her eyes red and swollen. She had clearly been crying for 2 days straight. When she saw me looking, she stood up, a clumsy, hesitant movement, as if she wanted to come closer but was held back by an invisible wall. Her expression was a painful mix of remorse, fear, and a desperate plea for forgiveness. Seeing her, I felt nothing but a vast, cold emptiness. I turned my attention back to the kids, gently untangling their arms from around me. You to be good and finish your dinner. Okay. Daddy just needs to go take a shower. Will you eat with us? Daddy? Lily asked, her small hand gripping mine. Mommy made your favorite roast chicken. I clenched my jaw to keep my composure. I patted her head. You guys eat first. Daddy's not hungry right now. I have a few things I need to do. With that, I stood up and walked directly to the bedroom. I heard Chloe call my name softly from behind. Ethan. But I ignored her. I was afraid if I had to look at her, to speak to her right now, I would either lose my temper or lose my mind. I closed the bedroom door behind me. The familiar scent of the room, her perfume. The laundry detergent we used at me like a physical blow. This room held so many happy memories. And now, it was also the place where I had witnessed the most painful moment of my life. I closed my eyes for a second, trying to banish that filthy image from my mind. Then I pulled my large suitcase from the closet and began to pack. I moved like a machine, taking my clothes from the closet and folding them into the suitcase. My shirts hung next to hers. A neat, orderly row. Just a few weeks ago, she had ironed a stack of them for my business trip, her touch careful and loving. How could the same woman who cared for me in such small, tender ways be capable of such a monumental betrayal? After I had packed the suitcases with my clothes and essential belongings, I zipped them shut with a decisive tug. I let my eyes scan the room one last time. On the nightstand, our wedding photo was still there. In the picture, she was leaning her head on my shoulder, both of us beaming with happiness. She had chosen that frame herself, saying she wanted it right by the bed so it would be the first thing we saw every morning. I picked it up, my thumb unconsciously tracing the smiling faces. The woman in that photo felt like a stranger now, someone I didn't recognize at all. I turned the frame and placed it face down on the nightstand. I couldn't bear to look at it anymore. Finished. I opened the bedroom door and pulled the 2 suitcases into the living room. Chloe shot up from her chair the moment she saw me. The kids stared, their eyes wide, watching me with my luggage. Daddy, where are you going? Lily asked, her voice trembling with anxiety. I took a deep breath, forcing my own voice to stay level. Daddy has to go on a business trip. It might be for a while. Lily's face crumpled. For a few seconds, she just stared at me in stunned silence. And then she burst into tears. No, don't go. Daddy, you just got back. Why do you have to go again? You promised you would stay with me. She ran to me, sobbing, her small arms wrapped tightly around my leg. Leo, seeing his sister cry, started wailing too, running over to clutch at my pants. Don't go. Daddy, we don't want you to go. My heart felt like it was being ripped into. I knelt, pulling both of them into a hug, feeling their small bodies shake with sobs. Tears burned behind my own eyes, but I fought them back. I had to be strong in front of them. I stroked their backs. It's okay. Daddy's just going away for a little while. I'll be back to see you soon. Lily looked up, her face wet with tears. Really? You promise? You won't leave us? Her plea was a knife in my heart. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Pinky promise? She whispered, holding out her tiny pinky finger. I bit my lip to stop myself from crying out, and hooked my own pinky around hers. I promise. After a few more minutes of coaxing, the two of them, still sniffling, had quieted down a little. I looked over at Chloe. She had been standing silently by the table the entire time, tears streaming down her face. Maria, our nanny, had appeared from the kitchen at some point. She gave me a look of deep sympathy, then gently came and took the children by the hand. leading them to their room to play, giving us a moment of privacy. When the children were gone, I pulled my suitcases toward the front door. Chloe finally moved, stepping cautiously toward me, her face a mess of tears. She opened her mouth, her voice hoarse and broken. "Ethan, I'm sorry. Please, don't go. Don't leave me. I know I made a mistake." I held up a hand, silencing her, facing her desperate, pleading eyes. I forced my voice to be as cold as ice. "I don't think we have anything left to say." I gestured to the dining table. "I've already signed the divorce papers. They're on the table. You should read them and sign them. We can get this over with quickly." She let out a choked sob, shaking her head violently. "No. Please. Don't do this. For the kids. For us." The mention of our children made the anger inside me flare up again. I glared at her, my voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "You're the one who didn't think of the children when you brought that man into our home. Into their home. You destroyed this family. Don't you dare use them as an excuse now." She froze, her face turning ashen. All she could do was let out a hopeless, gasping sob. Seeing the woman who was once my everything reduced to this pathetic state, I felt a flicker of pity. But the wound she had inflicted was too deep to be healed by tears of regret. I turned away, my voice low and final. "I'm leaving. And I'm leaving everything for you and the kids. They're young. They need their mother. I don't want anything. This apartment, the money in our joint account, the cars, the investments, it's all yours. To take care of them. The only thing I'm taking is my personal car. No, I don't want any of it. I just want you. I was wrong. Ethan." She cried, reaching out to grab my arm. I stepped back, out of her reach. I shook my head, a bitter, painful smile twisting my lips. "It's too late. I don't want to hear any explanations. I don't even want to know who that man was or how long it's been going on. It doesn't matter anymore. The only thing that matters to me now is our children. I expect you to take good care of them. Don't let them suffer any more than they already have." She was sobbing uncontrollably now, unable to form words, just covering her face with her hands. I stood there for a few seconds, looking at the woman I had spent 10 years of my life with, now a stranger who seemed both pitiful and repulsive. Without another word, I pulled my luggage to the door and opened it. My hand paused on the doorknob, my chest suddenly constricting with a strange pain. This was my home. The home I had built, filled with a decade of memories. In a moment, when this door closed, all of it would become the past. I took a deep breath and looked back one last time. Chloe was leaning against the wall, crying as if her heart was breaking. From the kids' bedroom, I could hear Lily's small voice asking Maria, "Is Daddy really leaving? When is he coming back?" My chest seized. I bit down hard on my lip to stop a sob from escaping. I stepped out into the hallway and pulled the door closed behind me, very gently, as if I were closing a chapter of my life. In the empty hallway, I leaned my back against the door I had just shut and closed my eyes. Something hot and salty trickled from the corner of my eye. I had tried so hard not to cry, but in the end, the tears came anyway. After a moment, I straightened up, picked up my 2 suitcases, and walked toward the elevator. I didn't look back, and just like that, I left the house that was once my home. Quietly, painfully, and for good. I left my home that night with no clear destination. After driving aimlessly for an hour, the adrenaline wearing off and leaving a hollow ache in its place, I decided to rent a small, furnished apartment in a quieter part of the city. I couldn't stay in another anonymous motel, and I wasn't ready to face my own mother yet. I needed a neutral space, a place with no memories, to just exist. The next morning, as I stood staring out the window of the sterile apartment, my phone buzzed on the counter. The screen displayed a name I dreaded seeing, Chloe's dad. I hesitated for a long moment before finally swiping to answer. "Hello, Mr. Anderson," I said, my voice hoarse. For 10 years, I had called him Dad. Now, the formality felt like a chasm between us. The thought of him knowing his daughter's shame made me feel a fresh wave of embarrassment and pain. On the other end of the line, his voice was heavy, strained. "Ethan, son, we know everything." My chest tightened. "Last night, right after you left," he continued, his voice cracking, "Chloe called her mother, hysterical, said there'd been a terrible fight. We drove into the city immediately. When we got there, the kids were asleep. She confessed everything. The whole sordid story. He paused, and I could hear him take a ragged breath. I never imagined my daughter would. His voice trailed off, thick with emotion. I could hear my mother-in-law sobbing softly in the background. My own eyes began to burn. Chloe's father had always been a stern, principled man. But in our 10 years as family, he had shown me nothing but respect and affection. He was proud of me. I could only imagine how devastated he was. I'm sorry, sir, I managed to say, the words feeling inadequate. I'm so sorry it came to this. No, he said, his voice firming with a sudden surge of anger. Don't you apologize. We're the ones who are sorry. We failed. We didn't raise her right. For her to act with such a lack of decency. We are so ashamed. Ethan. In the background, her mother took the phone. Her voice was a broken whisper. Ethan. Honey. I'm so sorry. Please. Don't shut us out because of what she's done. I know you're hurting. But please, the children. Mrs. Anderson. I said quickly. Of course not. I would never blame you or her dad. This is between me and Chloe. You will always be their grandparents. You will always be family to me. Hearing this, she only cried harder. Her husband took the phone back. He cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. Ethan. This afternoon. If you can. Could you come by the house? We need to see you. We need to talk. I was silent for a few seconds. The thought of facing them felt daunting. But they had driven through the night because of this. Their hearts were broken, too. They had loved me like a son. I couldn't turn my back on them. Yes, I said quietly. I'll be there. That afternoon, I drove to their modest, older house in a quiet suburb, the house where Chloe had grown up. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw them waiting for me on the front porch. The sight of them made my heart ache. In just one night, they seemed to have aged 10 years. Her father, normally so strong and upright, looked stooped and weary. Her mother's eyes were nearly swollen shut from crying. Hi, I said, my voice soft, managing a tired smile. Her mother rushed forward and took my hands in hers, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Oh, Ethan, my poor boy. How could this happen? She sobbed. I gently guided her to a chair on the porch. Her father poured me a glass of iced tea, his hand trembling slightly. Drink this, son. I was going to ask you to stay for dinner, but I figure you don't have much of an appetite. I took the glass from him, my hands cupping its cool surface. Thank you. We sat in silence for a moment, the three of us adrift in a sea of shared pain. Finally, her father spoke, his voice low and deliberate. Last night, after we finally got her to calm down, we made her tell us everything. I slapped her. Ethan. Twice. I've never laid a hand on that girl in her life. But what she did, it was against every value we ever taught her. His voice trembled. A mixture of fury and heartbreak. Her mother wiped her eyes with a crumpled tissue. We only have the one daughter. We loved her. Spoiled her. Maybe too much. But we never thought. After 10 years of marriage, with 2 beautiful children, how could she throw it all away? She broke down again, her words dissolving into sobs. I stared down at my hands, laced tightly in my lap, not knowing what to say. The pain of that 10-year bond being shattered was a fresh agony. Her father reached over and placed a hand on my shoulder. His voice was thick with emotion. Son, I know you're in a world of pain. And I am so sorry. We don't know how we'll ever face your mother. Our friends? The shame is just too much. I shook my head. Please, don't say that. In all of this, I don't blame you for anything. But I can't stay with her. Not after this. The words felt like stones in my throat. He nodded slowly, his expression grim. I understand. We can't ask you to forgive her. Not now. To be honest, we were hoping, for the sake of the children, that you two might find a way. But some things, once they're broken, they can't be fixed. Trust is one of them. He had spoken the exact thought that had been tormenting me. I gave a slight, imperceptible nod. My mind flashed to Lily and Leo. For them, I had wrestled with the idea of forgiveness. But every time I pictured that scene in our bedroom, the revulsion was too strong. I wasn't a saint. I couldn't just erase it and start over. Her mother leaned forward, her grip on my arm urgent. Ethan, I know you're angry with her. You have every right to be. But I'm begging you, whatever happens, please don't keep her from seeing the children. They need their mother. And they need their father. Please don't punish them for her mistake. I looked at her, moved by her love for her grandchildren. I would never do that. I said, my voice steady. I would never take their mother away from them. Whatever happens between Chloe and me, she's still their mom. I will do everything I can to make sure they're hurt as little as possible. Hearing this, her mother let out a long, shuddering breath, squeezing my hand in gratitude. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you. Her father nodded. That's the right thing to do. I told Chloe the same thing. I told her she needs to take a long, hard look at herself and figure out where she went so wrong. We're not defending her in this. Son, we'll be staying here for a few days to look after the kids. Lord knows she's not in any state to care for them properly right now. I felt a wave of gratitude for their kindness. Thank you, I said sincerely. I was worried about how she was managing with them. Knowing you're here helps. We talked for a while longer. They urged me to stay strong, to get through this difficult time, and promised to keep a close eye on the children for me. At the end of our conversation, her father walked me to my car. He put his hand on my shoulder again. No matter what happens, he said, his voice heavy, you will always be our son-in-law. You are the father of our grandchildren. We will always think of you as our own son. Don't ever be a stranger. You hear? I was so moved I could barely speak. I promise, I said, my voice thick, and I will always love and respect you both like my own parents. Her mother pulled me into a hug. You poor, dear boy, she whispered. I left their house with a small measure of peace. At least I hadn't lost their love and respect. That knowledge gave me a sliver of strength to face what came next. After that meeting, I knew where I had to go. I drove straight from their suburb toward the small town where I grew up, where my own mother still lived. It was a 2-hour drive. After all the turmoil, I felt a desperate need to be in her presence, to find comfort in the one place I had always been safe. I hadn't told her I was coming. When I pulled up in front of her small, tidy house, she was in the front yard, tending to her roses. She looked up, her face breaking into a surprised, joyful smile when she saw me. Ethan, what a surprise. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? I would have cooked something special. I tried to smile as I got out of the car and walked over to hug her. I just missed you. Mom. She hugged me back tightly. But I knew she wasn't fooled. She pulled back and studied my face, her smile fading, replaced by a look of deep concern. Come inside, she said softly. Whatever it is, you can tell me. Her small, simple house was exactly as I remembered it, clean and comforting. I sat down at the familiar wooden kitchen table. On the wall, a photo of my father still hung, man who had abandoned us. My mother, in her infinite capacity for forgiveness, had kept it there so I would never forget where I came from. She sat down across from me, her eyes searching my face. I couldn't hold it in any longer. All the pain, all the anger, all the grief I had been bottling up for days, suddenly burst forth. I slid from my chair onto the floor, knelt at her feet like a small child, and buried my head in her lap. And I wept. Mom, I choked out between sobs. Chloe, she cheated on me. Mom. My mother went completely still. Then, she started to cry with me, her arms wrapping around my head, her hand stroking my hair. Oh, my son. My poor son. How could this happen? I cried until there were no tears left, releasing all the agony I had been carrying. She just held me, murmuring words of comfort. It's okay, my love. Mom is here. You just cry. Let it all out. After a long while, when we had both calmed down, she helped me back into my chair. She wiped my face with a dish towel, her voice raw. Tell me everything. Holding her wrinkled, work-worn hand, I told her the whole story. From the moment I saw the shoes outside the door to my decision to leave and file for divorce. She listened intently, her expression shifting from shock to sadness to a rare, cold anger. When I finished, she was silent for a long time. She glanced up at my father's picture, then looked back at me, her eyes filled with a fierce, protective love. I always prayed you would have the happy family I never could, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I never dreamed. I squeezed her hand. It's not your fault, Mom. It's just my fate, I guess. She shook her head. It's not fate. It's her. That foolish, ungrateful girl. Does she have any idea what she's done? The family she's destroyed? The pain she's caused her own children? It was the first time I had ever heard my mother speak so harshly about Chloe. She had always been fond of her daughter-in-law. But now, all that warmth was gone, replaced by the righteous fury of a mother bear defending her cub. But then, she sighed, her anger seeming to dissipate. But it's done now. What's important is what you're going to do next. What are your plans? Who will the children stay with? I wiped my face, trying to pull myself together. I'm figuring it out. Mom. For now, they're staying with her. Her parents are there helping out. But once the divorce is finalized, I'm going to fight for custody. I want to raise them. Mom. I don't trust her with them anymore. My mother listened, nodding slowly. Raising children alone is hard. Ethan. I know. I did it. But if that's what you want, I support you 100%. I know my son has the strength and the love to give those children everything they need. But you need to be prepared. It's a huge responsibility, especially for a man with a demanding job. I know it won't be easy. I said. I was thinking, I might need to hire a full-time nanny. Or maybe you could come stay with me for a while. If you wouldn't mind. A warm, gentle smile spread across her face. Mind? Of course I wouldn't mind helping with my own grandbabies. If you need me, I'll pack my bags tomorrow. I was just worried you wouldn't ask. A wave of warmth and relief washed over me. I leaned my head on her shoulder, just like I did when I was a boy. Thank you. Mom. I'm so lucky I still have you. She patted my hair. Of course you do. I'll always be here for you, through the good times and the bad. I just want you to be strong. Ethan. Get through this, and raise those children to be good people. Don't let this break you. You hear me? I nodded, gripping her hand as if it were a lifeline. I hear you. Mom. I won't let it break me. I'll be strong for my kids. I'll give them the best life I possibly can. She smiled, satisfied. Then her voice grew soft again. And son, I know your heart is full of pain right now, but try to let go of the hate. Don't carry it with you. It will only poison you from the inside. Think of it this way, your journey with her is over. One day, if you can find it in your heart to forgive her, not for her, but for yourself, do it. So you can find peace. I listened to her words, letting them sink in. She was right. Holding on to hatred would only destroy me. I understand. Mom. I whispered. I'll try. We sat in silence for a while, the afternoon sun slanting through the kitchen window. After pouring out my heart to my mother, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. There was no place on earth as peaceful as being by her side. That night, I stayed at her house. She cooked me a simple dinner, but it was the most comforting meal I'd had in years. The next morning, I said goodbye, my heart a little lighter, my resolve a little stronger. I knew the road ahead for me, and my children would be long and difficult. But with my mother as my rock, I knew I could face anything. After the whirlwind of emotional storms, I had to force myself back into the rhythm of normal life. As much as I wanted to hide away, the world kept spinning, and my company wouldn't run itself. The first day back at the office was brutal. I felt like a ghost walking through the halls, my body present but my mind a million miles away. Everyone could see it. The weight loss, the dark circles under my eyes, the hollow look I couldn't seem to shake. I tried to smile, to engage in small talk, to pretend everything was fine. But it was a flimsy mask. And my best friend, David, saw right through it. During our lunch break, he didn't even ask. He just grabbed my arm and steered me out of the office and into a quiet coffee shop down the street. As soon as we sat down in a secluded booth, he fixed me with a hard, concerned stare. All right, spill it, he said, his voice low. You disappeared for a week. Your phone was off, and now you look like you've been through a war. What the hell is going on? Ethan. I tried to wave it off. A weak, dismissive gesture. It's nothing. Just some family stuff. David wasn't buying it. He leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Family stuff? That's what you call it when you vanish off the face of the earth. I know you. Man. Something's seriously wrong. I was so worried I even drove by your place a few days ago. I stiffened. You went to my apartment. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Yeah. Chloe answered the door. Said you were on an unexpected business trip and your phone died. I knew she was lying. The look on her face. She looked as bad as you do now. Hearing her name felt like a punch to the gut. She was already building a cover story. A web of lies to hide her shame. I fell silent, staring into my black coffee. the bitterness of it a pale imitation of the taste in my mouth. "Ethan," David said, his voice softer now. "Talk to me. You and Chloe. Are you guys okay?" Faced with the genuine concern of my oldest friend, I felt the walls I had built around myself begin to crumble. I didn't have the energy to lie anymore. I took a deep breath, the air shuddering in my lungs, and finally nodded. "Yeah, we're having some trouble." I looked up and met his eyes. "We're getting a divorce." David's jaw dropped. He stared at me, speechless. "What? A divorce? You're kidding me. You two are. You're the perfect couple. What could have possibly happened?" A humorless, broken laugh escaped my lips. "She's cheating on me," I said, the words still feeling foreign. "Surreal. I came home early from the Wyoming trip, and I caught her in our bed." David's shock morphed into disbelief, then into pure, unadulterated rage on my behalf. He sat back hard against the booth, letting out a string of curses under his breath. I can't believe it. I literally cannot believe it. Is she insane? To throw away a guy like you for? For what?" I shrugged, a gesture of complete helplessness. "I don't know. Man. Maybe it wasn't enough. Not exciting enough. Not rich enough. Who knows what she was looking for?" He slammed his hand on the table, making the coffee cups jump. "Don't you dare," he said, his voice fierce. "Don't you dare blame yourself. You're a damn good husband and an amazing father. And everyone knows it. She's the one who's lost her mind." I shook my head, too tired to argue, too tired to feel anything but a deep, hollow ache. "It's over, Dave. It doesn't matter whose fault it is anymore. All that matters now are the kids." His anger softened, replaced by sympathy. "Yeah, the kids. Oh, man. How are they?" "They're confused. Scared. For now. They're with her and her parents are helping out. But..." I hesitated, then pushed the words out. "I'm going to fight for full custody." He nodded, his expression serious. "Good. You should. What's the plan for now? Where are you staying?" "I rented a temporary apartment. Until the assets are divided. I'll probably look for a house to buy. Something permanent. For me and the kids." "Hey," he said, leaning in again. "You should look in my neighborhood. The schools are fantastic. And there are parks and playgrounds everywhere. Plus, you'd have me right around the corner. If you ever need anything, I'm there in 2 minutes." A small, genuine smile touched my lips for the first time in days. "Thanks, man. I'll think about that. That would be nice. Anything you need," he repeated, clapping me on the shoulder. "Seriously, we're all here for you. The whole crew has been asking about you. We've got your back." The weight of his friendship was a small but solid comfort in the chaos. We talked a little longer before heading back to the office. That afternoon, I buried myself in work, trying to find a sense of normalcy in spreadsheets and project timelines. It was a welcome distraction from the turmoil raging inside me. The weeks that followed settled into a new, painful routine. Days were for work. Nights were for the echoing silence of my empty apartment. There were no children's toys scattered on the floor. No cheerful squeals from the other room. Some nights, the quiet was so oppressive I'd turn on the TV just for the noise. The worst part was the video calls with the kids. Seeing their faces on the small screen was both a joy and a torture. They'd excitedly tell me about their day, showing me a new drawing or a block tower they built. And every time we said goodbye and the screen went dark, the loneliness would crash over me again, heavier than before. The divorce proceedings began. As I had promised, I was more than generous with the division of assets. The penthouse, the savings, the investments. He signed them over to her without a fight. My lawyer thought I was crazy. But I didn't care about the money. I just wanted to provide for my children and be done with it. The only thing I wouldn't concede on was them. Chloe, it turned out, was not going to make that part easy. Her initial remorse seemed to have been replaced by a defensive anger. Through her lawyer, she argued that I was an absentee father due to my work travel, and that the children needed the stability of their mother. The accusation stung. A cruel twisting of the truth. I worked those long hours for them, to give them the life I never had. The battle was turning ugly, and it was taking its toll. But it also hardened my resolve. Every legal letter, every false accusation, only fueled my determination to create a safe and stable home for Lily and Leo, away from the chaos and poor judgment their mother had introduced into their lives. To that end, I started my search for a new home. I spent my weekends with a real estate agent, looking at houses in David's neighborhood. I wasn't just looking for a property. I was looking for a future. I walked through empty rooms, picturing Lily's artwork on the walls and Leo's train set on the living room floor. I specifically looked for houses with big backyards. I could see it so clearly, a swing set under a large oak tree, the smell of freshly cut grass, the sound of my children's laughter filling the air on a sunny afternoon. That vision became my anchor. It was the reason I got up every morning, the reason I endured the painful legal battles, the reason I kept going when the loneliness felt unbearable. It was all for them, for that future. One Saturday, after a long day of house hunting, I was driving back to my apartment, feeling a rare flicker of hope. My phone rang. It was Chloe's mother. "Ethan. Honey. Sorry to bother you," she said, her voice strained. "It's no bother," I said. "Is everything okay?" "Well, it's Chloe. She went out last night with some friends. She didn't come home until after 3 in the morning." There was a pause. She said she needed to blow off some steam. "But Ethan, the children were here. What if they had woken up? What if they needed her?" I worry about her priorities right now." A cold knot of dread formed in my stomach. Were the kids okay? "Oh, yes. They slept through the night. But that's not the point. Her head just isn't in the right place. It's like she's trying to relive her 20s or something. It's not right." We spoke for a few more minutes, but her words echoed in my head long after we hung up. Partying until 3 a.m. while her young children were in the house? It was reckless, irresponsible. It was one thing to make a mistake, to have an affair. It was another thing entirely to neglect her duties as a mother. That night, as I sat alone in my silent apartment, a chilling realization dawned on me. This wasn't just about a broken marriage anymore. This was about the safety and well-being of my children. And I was beginning to fear that with their mother, they weren't safe at all. The fragile peace I was trying to build was shattered one Thursday evening. I had just gotten back to my apartment after a long day at work, the silence of the place wrapping around me like a shroud. I was microwaving a sad, solitary dinner when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Lily's picture. My heart always leaped when she called, but it was late for her to be up. A knot of unease tightened in my stomach as I answered. "Hey, sweetie. Is everything okay?" Her voice was a tiny, trembling whisper on the other end. "Daddy. Can you come get us?" My blood ran cold. "Lily. What's wrong? Where's Mommy?" I could hear her trying to hold back a sob. "Mommy's not home," she sniffled. "She went out a long time ago." "Leo's crying. Daddy. He's really scared. And I don't know what to do." Panic, pure and absolute, seized me. I dropped the phone, snatched my keys from the counter, and was out the door in a single motion, leaving my half-heated dinner forgotten in the microwave. "I'm on my way." "Lily," I said into the phone as I sprinted toward my car. "Lock the door and don't open it for anyone but me. Can you do that?" "Yes, Daddy. I'll be there in 15 minutes. I promise. Just hold on." The drive back to my old apartment was a blur of red lights and blaring horns. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. Rage, hot and blinding, warm with a gut-wrenching fear for my children. How could she leave a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old home alone at night? 1,000 worst-case scenarios flashed through my mind. A fire, a break-in, an accident. I pushed the accelerator to the floor, my heart hammering against my ribs. I screeched to a halt in front of the building and ran for the elevator, stabbing the button for the penthouse floor. The ride up felt like an eternity. When the doors finally opened, I sprinted down the hall and pounded on the door. "Lily, it's Daddy." I heard the chain rattle and the lock turn, and the door swung open. Lily stood there, her small face streaked with tears, her eyes wide with relief. I swept her up in a fierce hug, then rushed past her into the apartment. Leo was curled up in a ball on the sofa, sobbing into a stuffed bear. When he saw me, he let out a wail. "Daddy." I scooped him up, his little body trembling, and held them both, one in each arm. I kissed their heads, murmuring reassurances. "It's okay. Daddy's here now. You're safe." After they had calmed down a little, I turned to Lily. "Has Mommy come back yet?" She shook her head, her lower lip trembling. "No." I called her phone, but she didn't answer. I pulled out my own phone and dialed Chloe's number. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. I called again, Same result. The fury inside me was a white-hot inferno. I sent a single, ice cold text, I have the kids. We need to talk. Now. Then. Without a second thought, I went into their rooms and started packing. A small suitcase for each of them. Pajamas. A week's worth of clothes. Their favorite toys. Their toothbrushes. Lily watched me. Her expression a mixture of confusion and hope. Leo just clung to my leg, refusing to let go. I carried my children and their suitcases out of that apartment, leaving the door unlocked behind me. As we drove away, I glanced back up at the glittering top floor of the building. It wasn't a home anymore. It was just a place filled with ghosts and broken promises. Back at my small, temporary apartment, I settled the kids into the spare bedroom. They were exhausted, emotionally and physically. They fell asleep almost instantly, huddled together in the queen-sized bed. I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching their chests rise and fall in the soft glow of the nightlight. A wave of protective love so fierce it almost knocked me off my feet washed over me. I would never let anything bad happen to them again. It was almost 11 o'clock when my doorbell rang. A long, frantic buzz. I knew who it was. I opened the door to find Chloe standing there, her hair a mess, her face a mask of panic and anger. Where are they? She demanded, pushing past me into the apartment. How dare you just take them without telling me? I closed the door and turned to face her, my voice dangerously calm. How dare I? How dare you? You left our children home alone. Chloe. At night. Do you have any idea how terrified they were? Her face paled. The kids called you? Oh, God. My phone died. I was stuck in a meeting with a client out of town. And then my car wouldn't start. Save it. I cut her off, my voice like ice. I don't want to hear your excuses. It doesn't matter if you were meeting with the president. You are a mother. Your first priority is your children. And you abandoned them. I didn't abandon them. She shrieked, tears starting to stream down her face. I thought I would be home before they even went to sleep. It was an emergency. An emergency that was more important than your own children's safety. Lily had to take care of her crying little brother because her mother was nowhere to be found. Do you have any idea the damage you've done? She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing. But no words came out. The fight seemed to drain out of her, replaced by a dawning horror. Where are they? She whispered. I need to see them. They're asleep, I said flatly. They cried themselves to sleep. You're not going to wake them up. She crumpled onto my sofa, burying her face in her hands and sobbing. Please, Ethan, don't do this. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. It won't ever happen again. I swear. I looked at her, at the woman I once loved, and felt nothing but a cold, hard finality. You're right, I said. It won't happen again. She looked up, a flicker of hope in her tear-filled eyes. Because they're not going back with you. I continued, each word a nail in the coffin of our past. They're staying with me. From now on. Tomorrow morning. I'm calling my lawyer. I'm filing for full, sole custody. This ends now. The hope in her eyes died, replaced by utter devastation. She just stared at me, shaking her head in disbelief as the reality of my words sank in. I have made my decision. The battle lines were drawn. I would protect my children, no matter the cost. The legal fight intensified immediately. My petition for emergency custody, backed by the incident of neglect, sent shockwaves through the proceedings. Chloe, now truly desperate, fought back with everything she had. And it seemed everything she had included Marcus. He began to shadow the edges of our lives, a malevolent presence I could feel even when I couldn't see him. I learned through my lawyer that he was helping to pay her legal fees. He wasn't just a past mistake. He was an active partner in her fight against me. And then, he crossed a line that I could never forgive. One afternoon, I was picking Leo up from his preschool. The kids were playing in the fenced-in yard, waiting for their parents. As I walked toward the gate, I saw him. Marcus. He was crouched down, talking to my son. A brand new, brightly colored toy robot was in his hand, and he was holding it out to Leo. My vision went red. I moved faster, my heart pounding with a primal rage. As I got closer, I heard his voice, smooth and sickeningly sweet. So whenever you see me, you can just call me Dad. Okay, buddy? The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the air leave my lungs. This man, this parasite who had destroyed my family, was now trying to steal my son's very identity. To poison his mind. I was beside them in 3 long strides. I didn't shout. I didn't cause a scene. My voice came out as a low, dangerous growl. Get away from my son. Marcus looked up. A flicker of surprise in his eyes that was quickly replaced by an arrogant smirk. He stood up, towering over me slightly. Just having a friendly chat. He's a great kid. Takes after his mother. Leo, I said. My eyes locked on Marcus. Come here. Now. Leo, sensing the tension, dropped the toy and ran to me, hiding behind my legs. I placed a protective hand on his head. I took a step closer to Marcus, invading his personal space, my voice dropping to a near whisper so the other parents and children couldn't hear. I'm only going to say this once. If I ever see you near my children again at their school, at the park, anywhere, it will make you regret the day you were born. Do you understand me? His smirk faltered. For the first time, he looked uncertain, maybe even a little afraid. He saw the promise of violence in my eyes. He said nothing, just gave a curt nod, turned, and walked away. I picked up a trembling Leo, holding him tight against my chest, and walked back to the car where Lily was waiting. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat in the dark for hours. The encounter had shaken me to my core. Marcus wasn't just trying to hurt me anymore. He was actively trying to replace me. He was a predator, circling my family, and I realized with chilling certainty that he would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. The next day, I had my lawyer file for a restraining order against him. The war had just begun. The restraining order was a line drawn in the sand. But for a man like Marcus, a line was not a barrier. It was a challenge. He couldn't get to me through the law, so he decided to attack the very foundation of my identity, my fatherhood. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. It was from the principal of Leo's preschool. Her voice stiff and unnervingly formal. She requested my presence for an urgent meeting. I left work immediately, a cold sense of dread creeping up my spine. I was escorted into her small, sterile office. A woman I didn't recognize, who introduced herself as a child services representative, was also present. My heart began to pound a frantic, heavy rhythm against my ribs. Mr. Rivers, the principal began, avoiding my eyes. We received a package by courier this morning. It contained some disturbing documents. She slid a file across the desk. I opened it. Inside was a formal letter, and behind it, a lab report. The letter was from a law firm I'd never heard of, formally stating that their client, Mr. Marcus Thorne, had reason to believe he was the biological father of Leo Rivers. The report was a DNA analysis, declaring with 99.9% certainty that the paternal match was confirmed. The air rushed out of my lungs. The room tilted. For a moment, I couldn't hear anything but a high-pitched ringing in my ears. It was a lie. A brazen, disgusting lie. But it was printed on official-looking letterhead, a fabrication designed to look like undeniable truth. He's lying, I said, my voice a strangled whisper. This is slander. This is harassment. We understand this is a shock, the child services worker said gently. But given the nature of the document, and the fact that it was sent directly to the school, we are obligated to make you aware and to file a report. I stared at the paper, at the clinical text that was trying to sever the most sacred bond in my life. This was his game. He couldn't get to my kids physically, so he was trying to erase me from their lives on paper, to plant a seed of doubt so poisonous it could never be uprooted. I walked out of that school in a daze, the fraudulent documents clutched in my hand. I drove to a nearby park and sat on a bench, my mind reeling. I called Chloe. The moment she answered, I didn't even say hello. Did you know? I demanded, my voice shaking with a rage so profound it felt like it was going to tear me apart. Did you know Marcus was going to do this? Do what? Ethan. What's wrong? She asked, her voice filled with genuine confusion. I told her. I read the words from the fake report. There was a long, horrified silence on the other end of the line, followed by a choked sob. No, she whispered, her voice breaking. Oh my God. No, Ethan. I swear to you. I swear on our children's lives. Leo is your son. He's your son. That monster. How could you do something so evil? Her denial was absolute, her horror so palpable that even through my blinding anger, I knew she was telling the truth. She was a part of the affair, but she wasn't a part of this. This was all him. This was the desperate, vicious act of a cornered narcissist. I'm getting a real test. I said, my voice cold and hard. Today. And when the results come back, I'm going to bury him. The days spent waiting for the results of the real DNA test were the longest of my life. I went through the motions work. Making dinner for the kids, reading them bedtime stories, but a dark cloud of anxiety hung over me. Though I knew in my soul that Leo was mine. Marcus's vile accusation had violated our family in the most profound way. The storm finally broke on a Friday afternoon. My mother was scheduled to pick up the kids from their after-school program. As I was tied up in a late meeting, I was just wrapping things up when my phone rang. It was my mom. Ethan, she said, her voice tight with a panic I had never heard from her before. Where are the kids? The school is empty. The teachers said they were already picked up. My world stopped. What? What do you mean they were picked up? By who? A man. He signed them out about an hour ago. He said he was their uncle. That you had a family emergency and sent him. Ethan. He knew their names. He knew your name. No. 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 The restraining order. The police reports. They meant nothing. I hung up the phone. My body moving on pure adrenaline. I was in my car and speeding toward the school before I even registered making the decision. I called 911 as I drove. My voice cracking as I reported my children, age 7, and Leo, age 4, is kidnapped. The suspect, Marcus Thorne. The minutes that followed were a blur of unimaginable terror. The police met me at the school. The teachers, distraught and crying, confirmed my worst fears. He had been charming, convincing. He had forged my signature on a permission slip. He had walked away with my children. My entire world. As I stood in the empty school parking lot, surrounded by police officers, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered, my hand shaking so violently I could barely hold the phone to my ear. Hello. The voice on the other end was distorted, but I knew it instantly. It was him. Took you long enough to realize they were gone. Marcus sneered. Where are they? I screamed. The sound raw and animalistic. If you've hurt them, I will kill you. He laughed. A cold, chilling sound. Temper. They're fine. For now. But their continued health is going to cost you $500,000. In cash. And if you've called the cops, and I know you have, I'll be getting your kids back in pieces. My legs gave out. I sank to my knees on the asphalt. $500. Zero. I don't have that kind of cash. Then you'd better get it. He snarled. You're a successful man. Ethan. Figure it out. You have until midnight. Let me talk to them. I begged. Tears streaming down my face. Please. I need to know they're okay. There was a pause. Then some muffled sounds. And then I heard her. My daughter's voice. Small and terrified. Daddy. Daddy. I'm scared. Lily. I cried out. My heart shattering into a million pieces. It's okay. Baby. Daddy's here. Daddy's going to come get you. I promise. The line went dead. A detective helped me to my feet. We heard it all. Mr. Rivers. We're on it. We're going to get your children back. The next few hours were a living nightmare. With the help of the police, David, and my company's bank, I managed to gather the money. Most of it was counterfeit, supplied by the FBI, with a GPS tracker hidden in one of the bundles. I became a pawn in a game I never wanted to play, following the instructions of the police, trying to keep my terror from consuming me. At 10 p.m., the call came. He gave me an address, in an abandoned warehouse complex on the industrial outskirts of the city. Come alone. No tricks. I got in my car. The heavy briefcase full of money on the passenger seat. Plainclothes detectives in unmarked cars fell in behind me. A silent, ghostly escort. I drove through the dark, deserted streets. My mind a blank slate of fear. All I could think about were their faces. Lily's serious eyes. Leo's goofy grin. I arrived at the warehouse. A looming, skeletal structure against the night sky. I got out of the car, carrying the briefcase. My steps echoed in the terrifying silence. I'm here. I shouted. My voice hoarse. I have the money. A steel door groaned open. A figure emerged from the darkness. It wasn't Marcus. It was another man. Burly and menacing. Inside. And dropped the case. I did as I was told. My heart pounding in my throat. I walked into the cavernous, pitch-black space. A single, bare bulb flickered on, illuminating the center of the room. And I saw them. They were tied to a chair. their mouths covered with duct tape. Lily's eyes were wide with terror. Leo was sobbing silently, his small body shaking. Standing behind them, holding a long, wicked-looking knife, was Marcus. "You came," he said, a triumphant smirk on his face. "I knew you would. A father's love? It's so predictable." "Let them go," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You have the money. Just let them go." He picked up the briefcase, opened it, and riffled through the stacks of cash. "This isn't just about the money, Ethan. This is about justice. You took her from me. You took my son from me. He is not your son," I roared. "He should have been," he screamed back, his face contorting with rage. He lunged forward and pressed the flat of the knife against Lily's cheek. She flinched, a terrified whimper escaping from behind the tape. Something inside me snapped. The fear vanished, replaced by a cold, primal fury. I wasn't a businessman anymore. I was a father. I was a predator. As he was distracted by his own monologue, I moved. I launched myself at him, a guttural roar tearing from my throat. I tackled him, sending us both crashing to the grimy concrete floor. The knife skittered away into the darkness. His accomplice rushed forward. But before he could reach us, the warehouse was flooded with light and the sound of shattering glass as a SWAT team burst in. From all sides. FBI. Freeze. But my fight wasn't over. I was on top of Marcus, my hands around his throat. My world narrowed to his terrified, gasping face. I rained punches down on him, fueled by weeks of pain and terror. A detective had to physically pull me off him. He was cuffed and dragged away, screaming obscenities. I scrambled to my feet, my body bruised and aching, and ran to my children. An officer was already cutting them free. The moment the tape was off their mouths, they screamed my name. "Daddy!" I fell to my knees and pulled them into my arms, burying my face in their hair, sobbing uncontrollably. They clung to me, their small bodies trembling. I held them, rocking back and forth on the filthy floor of that warehouse, my heart overflowing with a relief so profound it was physically painful. "Daddy's here," I whispered over and over again, my tears soaking their hair. "You're safe now. Daddy's got you. You're safe." Outside, the night was filled with the flashing red and blue lights of a rescue. My children were alive. They were safe. The storm had finally, brutally, broken. The aftermath of the kidnapping was a blur of police stations, medical checkups, and the gentle, probing questions of child psychologists. Marcus and his accomplice were behind bars, facing a litany of federal charges. The evidence against them was overwhelming. My children, thank God, were physically unharmed, but the emotional scars ran deep. Lily was quiet, withdrawn, and suffered from terrible nightmares. Leo had regressed, becoming clingy and fearful of strangers. The sight of them, so small and wounded, solidified a cold, hard certainty in my heart. The final custody hearing was no longer a battle. It was a formality. The kidnapping incident was the final, irrefutable proof that Chloe's life, and the people in it, posed a direct and imminent danger to our children. My lawyer presented the police reports, the restraining order, and the testimony of the officers who had rescued us. Chloe sat beside her own lawyer, a ghost of her former self. She didn't contest a single point. She just sat there, her head bowed, as the judge read his decision. Full and sole legal and physical custody was awarded to me. Her visitation rights were to be supervised, pending a thorough psychological evaluation. As we left the courtroom, her mother took my hand, her eyes filled with tears of gratitude and sorrow. "Thank you, Ethan," she whispered, "for saving them." Chloe just stood a few feet away, watching us, her face a pale, tear-streaked mask. For the first time, all the anger I had felt toward her simply evaporated, leaving behind a hollow sense of pity. She had lost everything: her lover, her reputation, and now, her children. She had made a series of catastrophic choices, and this was the devastating result. A few weeks later, I heard through her mother that she was moving away, leaving Denver. She needed to start over, somewhere no one knew her name. The day she was set to leave, her parents brought her to my house to say goodbye to the children. I agreed, on the condition that I was present. It was an excruciatingly painful scene. She knelt on the living room floor, her arms wrapped around her children. She whispered apologies they were too young to fully understand. Leo, in his innocent, forgiving way, hugged her back tightly. Lily, however, remained stiff in her mother's embrace, her small face a mask of confusion and hurt. She didn't cry, but when her mother finally stood up to leave, I saw a single, silent tear trace a path down her cheek. As she walked toward the door, Chloe paused and looked at me. "I'm so sorry, Ethan," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "For everything." I just nodded. There was nothing left to say. The war was over. All that remained was the long, difficult task of rebuilding from the rubble. That afternoon, after the taxi had taken her away, the three of us stood at the living room window, watching the rain begin to fall. Lily's small hand found its way into mine. Her grip tight. I squeezed back gently. "It's going to be okay, sweetie," I said, my voice soft. "The storm is over. From now on, it's just us, and Daddy's not going anywhere." She looked up at me, her big, serious eyes searching my face. Then, a small, watery smile touched her lips. "Okay, Daddy." I looked out at the darkening sky, at the city being washed clean by the rain. A chapter of my life had closed in the most violent and painful way imaginable. But as I stood there, with my son's head resting on my shoulder, and my daughter's hand in mine, I knew that a new one was just beginning. It would be a journey of healing, of quiet moments and small victories, a journey back to the simple, profound peace of being a family. The months that followed were a testament to the resilience of the human heart, especially the hearts of children. We moved into the new house, the one with the big backyard I had dreamed of. My mother, true to her word, packed up her life in her small town and moved in with us. Her presence was a calming, steadying force, a balm on our wounded souls. She filled the house with the smell of home-baked cookies and the sound of her gentle humming. She read stories, patched scraped knees, and dispensed hugs with an endless supply of grandmotherly love. Slowly, Lily and Leo began to heal. The nightmares became less frequent. The laughter, once a rare and precious sound, started to fill the rooms of our new home again. We planted a small vegetable garden in the backyard. I taught Lily how to ride her bike without training wheels. We adopted a clumsy, lovable golden retriever puppy that Leo named Nugget. We were building a new life, piece by piece, memory by memory. I kept my promise to Chloe's parents. I never cut her out of the children's lives. We set up a regular schedule for video calls. At first, the conversations were awkward and strained. But over time, they found a new rhythm. She would ask about their school, their friends, their dog. They would show her their latest drawings or a new Lego creation. I saw it not as a favor to her, but as a gift to my children. They deserved to know their mother loved them, even from a distance. Forgiveness, my own mother had told me, was about finding peace for yourself. And for my children, my company continued to thrive. My work was an anchor, a place where I was competent and in control, a stark contrast to the chaos my personal life had been. The success allowed me to provide my children with every comfort, but I knew that what they needed most wasn't material things. They needed time. They needed presence. They needed a father who was not just a provider, but a partner in their adventures, a comfort in their sorrows, and a steady hand to guide them. I made a conscious decision to change my work-life balance. I delegated more at the office. I turned down projects that required long-distance travel. I made sure I was home for dinner every night. I coached Leo's soccer team. I volunteered to be the mystery reader in Lily's classroom. These small, ordinary moments became the cornerstones of our new life. They were the moments that mattered. One crisp autumn evening, about a year after Chloe had left, the four of us were in the backyard. My mom was sitting on the porch swing, a contented smile on her face. I was pushing Leo on the swing set I had built, his delighted squeals echoing in the twilight air. Lily was on the grass with Nugget, teaching him to roll over. The setting sun painted the sky in brilliant strokes of orange and purple. The air was filled with the scent of burning leaves from a neighbor's yard, and the sound of my children's carefree laughter. I stopped pushing the swing and just stood there, watching them. A sense of peace so profound it was almost overwhelming washed over me. The storm had passed. It had taken so much from us, had torn our world apart and left scars that would never fully fade. But it had also given us something unexpected. It had forged a bond between me and my children that was stronger than steel. It had taught me the true meaning of love, of sacrifice, of what it really means to be a father. Looking back on the man obsessed with the idea of a perfect, unbreakable family, realized how naive I had been. Life isn't about building perfect things that never break. It's about having the strength to pick up the pieces and build something new. Something different. Maybe. Something scarred. But something beautiful and real and true. Lily looked over at me and grinned. Her smile bright and genuine. Push me next. Daddy. I smiled back. My heart full. You got it. Sweetie. As I walked over to her, I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that we were going to be okay. More than okay. We were home.